Hello, this is a video about how to use Google Forms. So Google Forms is one of my favorite Google apps. I use it in personal life and in school life. It's a great way to collect information from students, from friends, etc., planning events, you name it. A lot of people are also using it for tests these days or quizzes. So I've just opened a regular old Google form here. So let's just start by titling it. Let's call it a survey. And then if I click up here, it'll change that to survey as well. And it always gives you your first question. And so I'm just going to start typing in the first question here. Okay, so I hope you saw what just happened there. It was blank before and it said multiple choice. Once I typed in name as my first question, short answer appeared. So it's pretty cool. It predicts what type of answer your question would have based on what you've written for your question. And it's almost always right. So it's predicted that it's short answer. That's true. I want them to write their name. And a pro tip here is you definitely want kids to put their name in because otherwise it does not collect their name automatically and you won't know whose quiz is whose. So make sure name is your first question or first name or last name, that sort of thing. Then if you want a second question, you're going to click the plus sign. That's add question. Also, I should note there is a required toggle here. You want to make any questions that the kids all have to answer a required question. Okay, so I've done that. I can go to my next question. Maybe it's a multiple choice question this time. I can say, which is correct? And whatever the question is. And then I can just start listing options. 7, 5, 6, 10. And I can do that. And I can make this required or not. Let's say my next question is almost the exact same. I'm just going to go duplicate, and I have another question exactly the same. I can just change the answers or I can change the question. Okay. And then there's a lot of different types of questions. You can do paragraph answers, check boxes, drop down, file upload. You can do a multiple choice grid if you're doing more of a survey style. You can add a date or a time. There's so many different options in here. Checkboxes are different than multiple choice because checkboxes, you can pick more than one. Multiple choice, you can just select one option. Okay, so let's look also at how to make this a quiz. Right now, this is just a regular old Google form, but if I want it to actually be a quiz that has answers, I'm going to go into settings and I'm going to go into quizzes and I'm going to toggle on make this a quiz. And then I can make it so that their grade is released right after submission, and I click save. Okay, so now I've made this a quiz. I'm gonna go in here, and on this one, this is where you do the answer key. So you click here, and now you put add a correct answer. So technically for name, I mean, all answers are correct, so that's gonna be a little bit different. So you don't really need to put anything there. And so you can start listing your correct answers. It's a lot easier on the multiple choice side of things. You can go answer key. The correct answer is 6. Done. And so now it shows me that I've created my answer key and there's my little tick box, which is correct, yada, yada, yada. So on this one, I could actually just make it worth 0 points because they can't get their name wrong. Hopefully. Okay, so that's how you do the quiz side of things. You click on answer key and you do your answer in there. Now let's look at how we actually look at the responses. So when I go in here, this is where I will see all the responses appear from the students. It sorts it really nicely. But also I can create a spreadsheet just by clicking on this little green button here. So if I click on this, it's going to create a new spreadsheet called survey or whatever I've called my quiz. There we go. And it puts a heading for all of the questions I've asked for the name, score, etc. And it's going to auto-populate. So as the students fill it out, it will fill out this Excel. So you do not need to do anything to this. It will do it for you and it will populate, and it's a nice way to see all the answers together. Okay, so let's close out of that. Also, let's look at the settings in here. A few other options you can change. I would recommend ticking this box, collect email addresses. This makes it so that students have to be signed into their @Learn account to complete it. And it also collects their email address so that just in case you forgot to ask for their name, it collects their name within the email address. So it's a little bit easier to see that. You can also limit students to only being able to respond once. And you can make it so they can edit after they submit or not. And then in presentation, this is just a little thing. So if you want to shuffle the question order, show a link to submit another response, yes or no, you probably don't want them to respond more than once. And then down here, it will automatically say your response has been recorded. But if you'd like to say something else to them at the end, like thanks for completing this or something, you can type it right in there. Okay, so that's everything in there. We've got all of our questions here. Now the last step, once you've completed making your quiz, actually, before I do that, I will show you that there are a few other options along here. So that's add question. This is import questions. You probably won't be using that very often. Add a title and description. So you can add a title kind of wherever you want to describe things. You can add an image in. You can add a video, usually from YouTube. And then I really like to see the sections area. So if you want to have a different section, maybe one section was on multiplication and now you have one called division. You can do that. And you can actually make it so that based on their answers in this question, you can make it whether or not they continue to the next section or they go to the end of the form. So you can make it so some kids will go on to the second section based on how they did on the first section, etc. And some can just go straight to the end. So the sections are a cool way to break it up, but they're not necessary. Okay. Now, lastly, you're going to want to be sending this out to the kids. So first, you might want to see what it looks like for the kids. You can click on the eyeball for a preview. And then you'll see what the quiz looks like. And then you can also go to this send button. So when you click send, it's going to give you some options. You can either send it directly to their email, but you don't need to do that. You can send them a link. So you would copy that link. Or you can actually go straight into Google Classroom and share this form with your students. So you would go here, go Google Classroom. I'll just go into my example classroom, classwork, create, quiz assignment. And then when I clicked create, it created a new Google form, so I could do it that way, but I could also just add from my Google Drive. And I'm going to add the one that I just made called survey. So I'm actually going to close that one off. And then I can turn this on, locked mode on Chromebooks. So if I turn that on, then the student's Chromebook will be kind of locked in on just the form, so they can't be looking at any other things on their computer. This is kind of a moot point right now because every student is on a different device. And then you just fill everything out as usual and you assign it. Okay. So that is a very quick overview of Google Forms. You can do so much with it. I really love it. I hope it helps.